Hi, VGT Adam here. So I just watched the Dragon's Dogma anime on Netflix, and yes, out of all the things that kind of came out recently with the PlayStation Showcase and Nintendo Direct, this is what I choose to talk about. Um, but like with those other things, like I'm sure I'll cover them in some other way during whenever they come out, such as like reviews or videos or whatever. And I think like enough other people did their thoughts on those things. So I want to talk about the Dragon's Dogma anime. So, in general, for Dragon's Dogma, very very good game. I don't know if it's one of my favorite games of all time, but it does have one of my favorite bosses of all time. I do have a countdown for that. Very very awful countdown, but I have a countdown. For fun bosses, and one of the bosses for Dragon Dogma is on there. But yeah, it's a very very fun game. So I was excited to hear there's an anime announcement, but I was also cautious because not only the 3D, but like some of the stuff they might have been changing. I was a little hesitant on. So I will be spoiling all of Dragon's Dogma. I won't go into Dark Arisen because I never had a chance to play it when it came out. I never found a reason to, but it's not really important to what's going on. But I will spoil all Dragon's Dogma, and I will spoil the anime too. So I would say stop this video and go play that. And I'm not even saying come back to this video or watch the anime. I'm just saying go play Dragon's Dogma. It's a really good game. You don't even have to finish this video or watch the anime, and might not want to watch the anime. So yeah. Anyway, so I thought I'd just give my thoughts on it. It's a short series. It's only 7 episodes. I'm surprised it wasn't the 13. Could have benefited from the 13. I guess it's only going to get one season, seeing as how it ended. But it's weird. It's like it's a combination of the plot of Dragon's Dogma plus just the plot of its own plot, like another Arisen story plus the Arisen from the game. It's a weird combination. I don't think it worked. Like, because the episode count was like obviously covering the whole game in one season would have been impossible. Even if they had the 13 episodes, that would have been impossible. So I'm not expecting that. But the stuff they did cut out was some of the most interesting stuff. In order of having their own Seven Deadly Sins storyline, which I don't think worked as well. It made this a lot more generic. Like, Dragon's Dogma is pretty much like the best Berserk game. And you can feel that in this. This feels like a good Berserk modern anime. And after having to deal with the 2016-2017 Berserk anime, this is better, both animation wise and just like tone wise and everything. But I don't know why they decided to go this route. I do have some stuff written down just to make sure I don't go off track, but like some of the most interesting stuff in the game was just cut, and I don't understand why they did that. Like they hint at a couple things here and there, but like if this is only having one season, then there's no point in hinting at it. This is just an ad for Dragon's Dogma, and not even that good of one. And it won't hype people up if there's ever a sequel, which I want there to be a Dragon's Dogma sequel. But it won't hype people up for that because the series is not. I think overall it's just average. It's just average. So let me get into the good stuff because I think there's a lot more bad stuff. But let me get into the good stuff. The animation is actually kind of good. Like it's 3D. It's mostly 3D. But it's fairly good 3D. Even like the basic movements, like they're a little stiff, sure, but they're not bad. There's nothing bad. It does do that weird thing what a lot of modern anime do, 3D anime do, that like they'll occasionally have 2D things, and for some reason mix 2D with 3D in the same scene, and it doesn't work. I don't know why they continue to do that, but there are times where they have 2D, and the 2D is fine, but the 3D is good too, and sometimes 3D can have some really good animation. Like there's times where the animation in 3D is really good. So I'm glad that Japan's getting better with that. Still, it's probably gonna take a while to get used to it, and they're still gonna have a lot of jank with it. It won't be too smooth. Like I feel like they should just animate 3D how they animate like CG video game movies or like 3D anime 3D movies. Like the Final Fantasies or whatever like that. Well, whenever they do like 3D movies, like even the Gantz one I saw recently, like that looked good. I don't know why it's own. I got like maybe budget wise, it's definitely a thing, but like they should just make it a little more smooth. It should be easier. But the animation does look good. I will say that. I watched it in English, sacrilege, I know, but I played Dragon Dogma in English too. I don't think there even was a Japanese setting in the international versions, or at least the American version. The voice acting is good. The voice acting is good. There's one problem with one I'll get into in a second, but the voice acting is good, and the lip sync is actually really good. I think it is lip sync for Japan, but they really dubbed it well, because I thought it was like, is this lip sync to English? And I had to look at it like deeply. I'm like, no, it's not lip sync to English, but they're doing such a good job, it looks like it could be. So, while the performances are just, good, they're very good, because of the lip sync, they seem way better. So, this is like one of the best lip sync CG anime so far, I think, because all the other ones either have like generic movements or just don't sync up well. This syncs up really well. I'm glad they put in the effort to do that. Let's see. Oh, okay, yeah. The one bad thing is that, like, while the performance isn't bad, David Lodge is Grigori. Like, in the game, when you first see the dragon, he's talking in dragon tongue, and it sounds, like a dragon talking. And I guess because the Arisen's heart is stolen, he can understand the dragon, but no one else can. But when David Lodge talks as Grigori, however you want to pronounce it, in the game, it sounds so badass, so menacing. It is terrific. And for some, God knows why reason, they put a filter on his voice in the anime. I don't know why. David Lodge's, he's not in the, Grigori's not in the show for long, but, so it seems like more work it seems like more work, because, like, David Lodge's voice is so badass as Grigori. It's so menacing, it's so cool, and putting that filter on didn't make it better, it made it worse, and I feel like that's more work for someone who already had an awesome voice to begin with. Trying to make it more menacing and scary, it didn't really need to be, because he could have done that with his own voice. I don't know why they added the filter. I thought that was just a thing for the preview, like, oh, let's just make it look scary, but no, that's in the whole show. It's very bad. I don't know why they did that. That's the only really, even his performance is still good. But it's hard to tell because of that filter. I don't know why they had that filter. I don't understand it. I don't. But so each episode deals with some kind of sin. For some reason, the 7 deadly sins. I get to show the worst in humanity, which is like the whole theme of this is like humanity's sins and the worst of them, which I don't remember the original doing. Like, I played Dragon's Dogma twice, but that was also back when it came out. Like, I played it once and played it immediately again, and that was back in 2012. And while I, looked up a couple things here and there, I haven't fully played it since then. So sometimes my memory can be a little fuzzy, but I don't remember the game having that kind of theme at all about the sins of humans and how shitty we can be, which is true, but I don't remember that. I don't know why they made that a thing in this. It's not wholly unique. I mean, Dragon's Dogma isn't wholly unique, besides a couple things here and there, but it's like Devil May Cry Dungeons & Dragons with some elements of Shadow of the Colossus and Monster Hunter in there. So it's not wholly unique, but like they didn't really... They do have some kind of cool stuff, like some of the generic things they work with, and this one just decides to go for the sins. And because it's TVMA, like, they can actually get away with a lot more stuff like lust. It's not just like, oh, just sexy woman. It's, oh no, it's actual sex scenes. By the way, yeah, the Dragon's Dogma, like one flirtatious character and like a couple off-screen sex scenes, but there was no nudity whatsoever. None of the sex scenes were on screen, and like you can miss, like, besides one of them, you can miss like the other ones. Honestly, like, they weren't really that important. They just showed two characters kissing, then fall off the camera. Well, this one, because it's on Netflix, they show it. So there's that. I mean, I guess take that, Fullmetal Alchemist, you couldn't actually have sex scenes. But, yeah, like, the game, I don't remember ever having anything to do with how shitty humans are. But this one decided to do that for some reason. I don't think it worked. I think it made it more generic. I really do. So the opening of the game is it opens with the dragon coming out of the clouds, and the game gives more context to that, where this one's just like, oh, I guess dragons just live in clouds for some reason. But starts off, you're in a fishing village, and you're a fisher. You're just your own character you make up, and there's no love interest. In fact, the girl that's there is your cousin, and they changed that for the anime, which is a little creepy, but I'll get into that. So in the game, it's your cousin, and then the dragon attacks, and he's supposed to destroy the village, but thanks to your character attacking him and actually managing to hit him, he decides, you know what, I'm going to spare this village, and your heart's mine now, which in the game, he actually plucks out of your chest, like, puts his fingernail in, plucks it out. It's so cool. And I think that was so cool that, like, the dragon's supposed to go around destroying villages, but the actor, not only is it a good final boss preview, even though he's not technically the final boss, even though it's a good final boss preview of, hey, this is what you're going to be facing, it's like, oh, your actions, you weren't the chosen one, your actions made you the chosen one, and you prevented the town from being destroyed, which means you're going to get side missions and actually go back to the town and everything, which is cool. And your main goal for the whole game is get your heart back. Like, there's other side plots and side missions and everything, but the main goal is as video game as it gets. Just go for the goal, get your heart back. And there's some other stuff that happens after you get your heart back and everything that makes it a little more interesting, but that's the goal, and that's video gamey. Now, when it comes to an adaptation, I guess as an adaptation, you can't have a one-to-one, you have to make some changes. Some of the changes I like. Some of them I don't. What I like is Ethan is the main character, and he has an actual backstory. I think his mom died of childbirth, and his dad kind of went crazy and tried to kill him and his kid in a certain way, which actually makes Ethan afraid of water, which is why, I don't know why that's important, because it's not like you encounter too much water in the game anyway. And then, he married his childhood love interest, basic anime shit. And he has a love interest, and he has a child on the way, and like a little kid he pals around with, who he's kind of like a surrogate son in a way. I kind of like that, and it gives more motivation than just get your heart back. It's also get revenge for everyone dying, because getting your heart back is something that's a little too simple for like TV show format. Unless you're making a long running series, like a shonen or a seinen long runner, which is then it's fine. Like the goal is get your heart back is fine, but for a short thing, getting your heart back, getting revenge for your loved ones, killing this big threat, that works fine. That works fine. I don't like how the dragon still ends up destroying everything, and then he just chooses you because reasons. He doesn't actually pluck the heart out. Like, the heart comes out, but he just uses magic to pluck it out. It's not as brutal. I mean, it's still brutal because blood gushes out everywhere, but it's not as brutal because it's not like he's tearing it out. He just like magic to pop it out. Yeah, I don't like that, he couldn't really prevent it. I guess it makes it more tragic that the whole village got burned down, and I guess it's not really important, because it's not like after the beginning of the game, like, you have to keep going back to that town over and over. It only becomes important at the very end of the game kind of thing, so I guess it doesn't really matter, but, like, I like the fact that, like, you proved yourself to be the chosen one, not just, oh, I choose you because fate dictates or whatever. And the pawns, like, if you didn't play the game, the show doesn't really define what pawns are too well. They're basically your party members. And you only have one in this series, and I guess she kind of goes through character development, though it kind of happens off-screen, because through 7 episodes, she kind of goes from being emotionless to emotional, and it's just, like, no reason for that, because in the game, that never happened either, so I'm not sure why. And then Ethan goes through some development that I'll get into a little bit later. Let's see, what else? Yeah, so the biggest thing about the game is that, like, the game itself's kind of generic, but it has, like, really big impactful moments that stay with you, like when you first encounter a Cyclops, or when you fight the Hydra, or when you fight the Griffin twice, the cockatrice attacking the town, the battle with the dragon, the stuff with the chimeras, cave trolls, the cult, all that kind of stuff. It's like, it has a bunch of memorable moments, but in between those memorable moments, it's kind of like just basic open world RPG stuff. Lack of generic pawn dialogue in the show. Kind of disappointing to not hear wolves hunting packs or fireworks well. Oh well. They did have reference by having Ethan smack his shield with his sword, which is something you can do in the game to attract attention, but whatever. Yeah, so, like, they don't really explain what the pawns are like. And I guess it doesn't really matter because you only have the one. But I thought it would have been cool if, like, throughout the show, you kind of, like, see Ethan get different armor and better swords just from episode to episode. The show he's getting stronger. But no, like, the basic battle gear he has at the beginning, he keeps him to the end, and somehow works. Okay. And he stays like a normal knight, like no mystic knight, no assassin class, no strider class, no, nothing. In fact, Hannah has like some of the more useful stuff, but yeah. Well, they have those big moments. Like the second episode deals with the Cyclops, then they do the Griffin, and then the Hydra, which I think is kind of backwards because you fight the Hydra first, I believe, in the game. But yeah, they have like some of the big moments. They don't have the Chimera, honestly, surprisingly enough, because that was like the first big thing. Was in the tutorial you fight a Chimera. I don't know why they got rid of that. Yeah, they have some of those moments. They also added a succubus instead of having harpies for the whole lust thing. But besides some fan service, I don't know. So like yeah, the first episode just deals with him becoming arisen and his town's destroyed and blah blah blah. The next episode was the Cyclops thing, I believe, right? Yeah, next I'm trying to remember. I didn't write down what each episode was. So it dealt with the Cyclops, which is a cool thing. The episode after that, I should have written this down. I should have wrote down what each episode was. Shit, hold on. Okay, I'm back. So, the first one was Wrath. That's about the dragon's wrath. The second one was Gluttony, about the people going hungry because the Cyclops keeps attacking their town, and just to stop them, they need to offer up sacrifice and they'll get food in this whole thing. Envy was dealing with the goblins, which, oh my god, I'm surprised they even had those things, and had a very weird reference to Goblin Slayer of all things, the most controversial part that people dropped Goblin Slayer for, they have a reference to. Some woman almost gets raped by goblins. Doesn't happen this time, but yeah. I don't know, that one was a weird one, because while it had the awesome Griffith fight... Griffith, oh my god. It had the awesome Griffin fight. It also had this storyline with the husband and wife, two survivors of a town dragon attack that just wasn't that interesting. And I guess it's supposed to show, like, the sin of envy kind of thing, in order to show that humans are shitty, but, like, it wasn't the best. They had an anti-drug episode with Sloth. Like, these people got high, and because of that, it ruined their lives, or they just couldn't fight back when there was a threat. And then the Hydra's there just for reasons. And then in this episode, in the Sloth episode, they introduce rage fits that Ethan gets into. And they get into that a little later, and I don't know why this addition was made. This was not something in the original game, because your character is, emotionless. He's just, ironically, he's a pawn. He's just the insert player character here. He's not literally a pawn in the context of the game. I just mean like he's emotionless and he's just there to just put yourself in, kind of thing. So there was no like rage mechanic, but here they make him do some kind of rage thing, and it's dumb, and that's where his character development comes from, or I guess character regression in a way, because as the series goes on, Ethan's the emotional one, Hannah's the emotionless, and they kind of switch where he becomes emotionless and she becomes emotional. So like every time he goes into his rage form, he becomes more and more emotionless and just like an asshole. Just because, I guess, it's not the best. And they have the Greed episode, which has the Lich or Lick, or however you pronounce it, which I believe was like something that he was a boss that was actually involved with the cult too. But they just have him here as some kind of person protecting gold, which is usually what dragons do. And it has some returning characters from the Envy episode, so like 2 episodes prior, and I guess a lot of time passed because like, oh my god, it's you guys. Like there's good moments in there. Like I said, the animation's good, the acting's good, some of the character moments I guess can be good, but it's just like it falls flat so often, and it's just like. The only reason I was invested is just be like, okay, how they handle this, where they're going. But I feel like if you've never seen Dragon's Dogma and you want to like get into it, this is not a good way to do it, because it's just so generic and boring. Honestly, like even get to the last episode, the episode should be filled with sex and fan service and whatever. Like it's just to show, hey, yeah, Ethan, your wife's dead. I mean, it gives a little more implication to his backstory, and I do like that. How it shows more of his backstory and how they came to love each other. But like, he forgot she died. I hate this thing in anime where like there's physical evidence of something happening, but it's like, oh, I must be in a dream. It's like, oh my god, Ethan, you can look at the bands on your hand, which you took from your dead wife, or you can look at your chest that has a giant scar on it. You did that in the first episode. It's like, oh, the scar's real. It wasn't a dream. But all of a sudden, oh, boobs. I guess this is a dream. Maybe I should just look down. Oh, scar. Oh, this is real. Oh, I always hate when it's like that. Like if there's no physical evidence, it's a lot more convincing. But if it's like, hey, there's a physical thing showing that something happened. It happened. Stop getting confused. I hate when that happens. But yeah, it just shows how he's becoming more and more of an asshole and just other stuff. And then Pride. I thought the anime would have ended maybe them getting to Grand Soren. I believe that's the name of the big city. Yeah, I think it was Grand Soren. They would end there and leave a cliffhanger. No, it goes to the dragon fight. And unlike the one in the game, this one sucks. Like, it's not awful, but it kind of sucks. Like, they have the whole thing about, humans being shitty, and that's why I'm killing, and they do keep the thing of how the dragon was also an Arisen, which is true, that some Arisens can turn to dragons, which the game goes a little more into. But this makes it like all Arisens turn into dragons. And it's like, what? And that's where his rage comes in. Like, that rage was him becoming more and more like detached from humanity and becoming more and more like a dragon. And that once he's killed the dragon, the old dragon dies and he becomes a new one kind of thing. And while they do have a reference to the final boss, the actual final boss of the game, they don't go through with it. And I guess the whole thing is that the cycle repeats, and like I said, this is a mix of the games and its own story. This is showing that it's just another Arisen that's fallen, and he became a dragon. And it's supposed to, I guess, be like a downer ending or a bittersweet ending or whatever. But I just don't think it hit the mark. I don't. I guess they needed some kind of, like, dramatic payoff or whatever, but, like, the game had it in an interesting way where it was still, like, the show portrays it as a punishment. Like, congratulations, your reward is, becoming a dragon, which is something that the game does too, but it does it in a different way. That's more interesting, where it's still a punishment, but for a different reason. So, like, what I find the most interesting about the game, story-wise, gameplay-wise, it's really fun. Some little box here and there, sure, but it's really fun. What I find most interesting is that, like, it's not the first story to have multiple Chosen Ones, but I can't think of too many other stories that have all the Chosen Ones alive at the same time. Like, you have the Duke, you have that one old guy, I don't remember his name. You have the dragon, they're all Arisens, and then you have your own Arisen, you're all alive at the same time. I think that's so cool. And, like, how the dragon has been around for so long because nobody can defeat it, and how it's kind of shaped the world in the fact that, like, once it's dead, the world actually goes to shit, and all the lies it was alive to cover up just fall apart. Like the Duke being young for the longest time because he doesn't have his heart. When you don't have your heart, you can't age, you can't die of old age. So once, your player character Arisen gets his heart back and the dragon dies, that old Arisen just melts away because he was old already. The Duke goes from being young to being old. I like, and like the whole underground thing opens up. I thought it was really, really cool. And like, you wouldn't know that the Duke is an Arisen unless you don't accept the battle with the dragon. If you say no to fighting him, it shows you becoming the Duke. It's like, oh, he was the Duke, because like, the dragon makes you an offer, like, spare your, let me eat your loved one, and you can go on saying you killed the dragon. And that's what the Duke did, and there's some side missions that show he regrets that and everything like that. But that's cool. I also like that this is like one of the only games I can think of where you can get like all your multiple endings on your first playthrough, which is really cool. But like, yeah, I mean, the love interest thing in the game was kind of like, to me. Like, it seemed like an unnecessary little detail. But then you also had stuff like the cult, which worshipped the dragon and did all this shit for it, and the dragon didn't even know they existed and kind of just crushed the leader at some point. It's so good. And they're like the main force of the game, besides the dragon, is this cult. and I get why they were at least cut out. But the Licht or was one of their like monsters they controlled, so like there's some connection. Like if you don't want to have the Licht in there, you could have had the Chimera or something, right? Then there's like the custom characters like Mercedes, which is like or Mercedes. I think it's Mercedes because Mercedes she's not a car. I think it's Mercedes who's just not as cool. Casca really. I love Berserk, but that's actually in the game too. A lot of like Berserk stuff. I get they didn't want to have all that stuff. I get it, but I like having the whole multiple Risen things. And they mentioned the Duke in the show, but never show him, and that's such a cool thing with his whole story and everything. Not just the fact he's risen, but stuff like with his wife, current wife, and deceased wife. Like all this cool, interesting stuff that they just get rid of. And like once you beat the dragon, you find out that hey, some Arisens actually become this is some kind of name like I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like they basically become a god. And what you can do is like reject becoming a god. It's like, oh, go back to being yourself, but like you don't really solve all these problems. Or you can choose to kill that god, in which case you'll be lonely because you can't really interact with anybody, but you can still see how they see the world for it is. Or if you lose against that god, you become a dragon. So it's still the same. It's still the same premise of punishment that makes you become a dragon. So if you lose to that god, you become a dragon, just like in the anime, you become a dragon. But for different reasons, it's just like you failed your goal. Your punishment is now you must find another Arisen to try and like continue the cycle in its own way, which is kind of what the anime does. But instead, it's like, no, you're just always gonna be a dragon. That's it. Now, granted, the god stuff in the game was kind of stupid, honestly. Like, there were some cool battles to get to it, but the actual god thing itself was a little dumb, especially since somehow you managed to break the cycle just because you kill yourself, which I guess no other Risen thought of killing themselves. Really? You're the first? Okay, sure. So they kind of try to do the same thing in the anime, but it doesn't work as well. I don't think it works as well. And, like, there was no stuff about the sins, like how shitty humans can be. Like, it wasn't, the story never went that deep. Like, it had interesting stuff, but never went too deep into it. Where this one tries to go deep into the sins of man and all this shit, and kind of focuses on that and doesn't even do it that well. So, like, the best parts about it are like the voice acting, the animation, the battles, some of the character interactions and like dialogue, and even some of the stories. Like, as much as I don't like the Envy story, it kind of ends in a stupid way, but like it's a story. It's a story, and it's done all right. The Greed story is kind of interesting. How like these previous characters and one of them got corrupted by greed so fast. That's kind of all right. There's okay things in there, but to me, there's just so much stuff, kind of like pushing it like away. And like the reason I'm not saying this is a bad adaptation because like I haven't played a single Castlevania at the game, but I love the Castlevania Netflix show, and I know those aren't the most faithfully adapted. Like, there's a lot of good shit in there, like a lot of good shit, which I feel like is how I was able to get a pass. But it's also well written, well animated, funny, has good character moments, all kind of shit that I think like people can ignore the fact that it's not like a direct adaptation. So I tried to do with this too, that this is not a direct adaptation, but it just wasn't handled as well. I think, like, this seemed less like loving care like Castlevania was, and more like, let's just do it to advertise, maybe. I think this is just kind of an advertisement, if this is going to be the only season, possibly. So I can't say it's, like, it's bad. I think, to me, like, if you're a fan of Dragon's Dogma, I think it can be bad. Maybe you can find something better than I didn't. But if you're just a normal like anime watcher, or just for some reason browsing an anime section on Netflix, but you're not an anime watcher, I think it's fine. It's just an action dark fantasy show that you can enjoy. But I feel like they just cut out some of the most interesting things about it, like your interactions with the townsfolk in Grand Soren, some of the missions you can do. Like, I feel like they could have. I guess maybe they probably weren't allowed to have more seasons. So maybe they had to do what they can, but like, why didn't Netflix allow them, or whoever, say like, let's go for the average 13, flesh it out more, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know. I'm just like, and I'm conflicted with this series. I really am. And it's not like the game's a masterpiece. It's a great game, but it's not like it's a masterpiece. And this one's kind of like, let's take a couple of good things from the game to put in here and not do it as well, but have it look pretty. It does look good. It's a well animated show. Well, it's still well done. There's just a lot of things holding it back. Um, it's a more faithful show than Berserk. I mean, technically not. Berserk still follows the manga, but like this felt more like a Berserk anime than the new ones did. But yeah, like that sense of adventure and fun that the original game has kind of gone. Like this seems more like as much. I didn't play Dark Arisen, but I know the tone of that whole thing is way darker. They kind of went for that, and like you can tell because the opening is your generic fantasy opening, and not like they couldn't find a way to put it into free. Maybe that was a licensing thing, but like, hey, let's have this thing that completely doesn't fit at all. Put it in here. It shows that we have some kind of fun, but it's like there's no fun in this show. Like I don't think there was even one bit of like levity or humor, like actual levity or humor, which is like something to make it like not too full of itself. Like not everything needs to be comedy, but like humans will always you know what, here I'll add on to your whole humans are shitty thing. Humans will try to find a way to make light out of dark situations. Like there's a reason why a lot of humans might crack jokes at some of the worst times, and people in the military and cops and everything have a habit of doing that. Is that they might make some kind of dark joke just to like not go insane from what they're seeing. So humans have a habit of doing that. And some writers seem to forget that and think dark is realistic and serious is realistic when it's like, yeah, it is, but we're also a species that like tends to find the light in situation to not go crazy, because if we kind of just accept everything's dark, then we become depressed or other things I probably shouldn't go into because I'm not a mental health expert and I don't want to say anything bad. But yeah, like why did I start getting philosophical about Jack and Dogma? Anyway, yeah. So it's just like it takes itself too seriously, and it doesn't have like I don't know. I'm kind of like running out of things to say because the series is just like so short. Like I do like that they kept the whole cycle repeats thing. I'll say it again, like the animation, the voice acting, and everything for the most part. The action scenes can be pretty cool. But with them leaving out some of the coolest lore things, with them leaving out some more interesting characters and their storylines, with them trying to do their own thing and not working too well with the whole like Arisen's turning into a rage thing, and that the dragon only attacks because it's in a rage, doesn't realize what it's doing, kind of thing, is not the best. The pawn getting character development off screen is just like it's not fully off screen. There's some stuff that's like because she listens to what Ethan says, it changes her way of thinking. But like how he becomes like I said, between episode 3 where they met those two knights and episode 5, which is 2 episodes later, they make it seem like a huge time has passed. But when we watch the show, it's like, no, they seem like they're going through this really fast. So I don't know what the pacing was for that. It's not bad pacing, it's just confusing pacing in a way. I don't know. It's just it could have been better, but I won't say it's bad. I think it's just overall average. And there's not too much to talk about because it is kind of generic. Like all the interesting stuff they took out. So it's not too much I can go into. Like I would love to talk more about how they handled certain things from the game or what they changed and if it's better or worse. But like they did some of that, which I did talk about already, but not enough. So it's like I can't do too much of comparison. And unlike say Castlevania, where like it has its own good storyline to dig into, this is just your basic fantasy. Besides the chosen one is doomed to become the villain over and over, which is a cool thing, but like the game had that too in a much more interesting way. So I don't know. And like I said, the battle with the dragon, like one of my favorite bosses of all time. Here it's just not to mention having a philosophical debate on humans while in the air wasn't the best choice. I don't know. I do like how they did have certain sections of that fight, like running away from the dragon's fire, and then being on its back and everything. But like the placement of them was bad, and like having that discussion should have been saved before the battle or after the battle or something, not in the middle of the air. Not to mention, like, he didn't go into the air until after that chase sequence. So, but they reversed it. Not to mention, like, after the dragon falls down in the game, they go into some kind of arena, which is fine, but somehow they crash back into the castle he resides in. Conveniently, I don't know how. There's something that keeps, there's something to keep faithful to the game, like the spells and how they work and everything like that. So there's some things, but like, it's just overall, It's the best I can say. It's just If you're looking for like a basic dark fantasy just to get your fix, watch it. Sure. If you're gonna try to use it again to Dragon's Dogma, don't. I don't know if it will attract you to get you in. Honestly, just play the game. It's not, like I said, it's not perfect, but it's a really good game. A lot more engaging, a lot more fun, a lot more stuff to do, a lot more interesting things about the game, story and gameplay wise. I don't know. I think overall, like, my thoughts on it is just like it's well produced, but not well done. If that makes any sense. Like, you can tell like a lot of work went into this, but like what they try to do differently just didn't work. And like the stuff they did adapt some cool things, but like, that's just. So I've been repeating a lot of my points. I've kind of just been rambling. I had notes down and I went through them a little too fast, so I don't know what else to get into. If you have anything else you want to discuss in the comments, go ahead. I might join in. That's my thoughts on the Dragon's Dogma anime. I don't want another season, but I do want another game. Just do better next time. Netflix, order a different game and have it done a little better, please. That's really all I wish for.